Hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on this afternoon's webinar for Cloud Talk. So today's topic will be on succession planning, and we have a very exciting lineup of speakers for you today. Before we actually introduce who they are, let me just share with you what the agenda for is today. So right after this introduction, we will be jumping right into the panel discussion, which will be moderated by our Asia editor, Lee Williamson. Right after that, about 20 minutes, the panel discussion will take about 20 minutes. And right after that, we will be proceeding into a 5 to 10 minute Q&A session where we will be taking questions from the floor. So please feel free to ask as many questions as you want to our speakers or to our moderator as well. So the session should end at about 1 p.m. So that's about half an hour from now. A couple of guidelines and reminders that I would like to share as well. This session is being recorded and the video will be published in a post-event article on our website. The session is also being live streamed on YouTube. All attendees will only be on view-only mode as well as on mute. You can actually choose to view this webinar between gallery view as well as speaker view, whichever you prefer. You can also use the chat box below in your window to actually send us your questions or any comments that you might have. And finally, if you're posting about this event on social media, don't forget to tag us at Gen.T_Asia, as well as #GenerationTAsia. All right, without further ado, I'd like to pass the time over to Lee, who will be introducing our three speakers to you. Lee, please.
Thank you, Xiaowei, and thank you everyone for joining us today too. There is no success without a successor. So said legendary business guru Peter Drucker. Asia now has more billionaires than anywhere else in the world. But some of the region's wealthiest are also the least prepared to hand over the reins of their businesses. Around 60% of Asia's high net worth individuals have zero succession plan in place. And it's not just important for the sake of the family. Nearly 85% of Asian companies are family owned. And on average, public companies without a proper CEO succession plan in place stand to lose $1.8 billion in shareholder value. By 2030, the world's richest individuals are expected to transfer about $15.4 trillion of wealth to the next generation. And they need to get it right the first time. To discuss the fundamentals of succession planning, I'm delighted to be joined by three panelists today who can tackle the topic from three unique perspectives. First, we have the first generation founder, Claire Chang, the co-founder and senior vice president of Banyan Tree Holdings. Claire co-founded the Singapore headquartered hospitality group with her husband, opening their first resort in Phuket in 1994. Today, Banyan Tree has resorts and properties around the world, and Claire also chairs the Banyan Tree Global Foundation, where she champions the group's dedication to environmental sustainability. Next up is the successor. Gen.T honoree Dexter Lau is the executive director of Kim Tech Cheong, East Malaysia's largest consumer packaged goods distributor, which was founded by his grandfather in 1938. Under his leadership, Kim Tech Cheong went public in 2015 and continues to go from strength to strength. Finally, we have the expert. Cynthia Lee is Regional Head of Private Wealth Solutions, Asia Pacific at HSBC Private Bank. With more than 2 decades of experience in wealth advisory, Cynthia has helped some of Asia's most eminent families with their trust and estate planning, as well as philanthropy and succession needs. Welcome to all three of you. Please do turn on your cameras and your videos. And before we get into it, go into the weeds in this, I would love it if you could please introduce yourselves with a particular focus on your experience of the topic at hand today. Claire, do you mind going first, please?
Well, when I read your title that says the science of succession planning, my first reaction was, not quite science, because unless you just talk about structures and processes that we have to invent and innovate, I think it's a lot to do with the art of succession planning, especially from a parent to the children, and it is intergenerational. There are a lot of questions as founders that I had to ask. Is it necessary that the children or the successors are fit for the purpose? And that really begs the vision of what I see as the legacy that we have built and how that could be continued.
Yeah.
It would mean a lot more of reviewing, thinking about the future, about what to expect next and what do we pass on next.
Interesting that you say it's an art, not a science. I look forward to exploring that art form in the next half an hour. Dexter, how about you? Can you please share your experience at the top with the topic at hand today? Dexter, you're on mute. If you could unmute yourself, please.
Well, basically, it's all about the continuity of the company is very important. And this is something that we all, as a leader of the organizations, have to think about all the time. And it is beyond what the family, it's all about, it is beyond what family can do or what the family does, but it's all about maintaining the legacy of our first generation or our second generations have done. And how do we continue to build value? And how do we build a strong family legacy that can continue for generations and it will not be broken?
I think as a successor of an almost century-old company, you are uniquely positioned to answer that question, Dexter.
Yes, 84 years old.
Well, I think we can say that. We can round that up to 100. We can round that up to a century. Sounds good.
I like your mathematics, you know.
Cynthia, exactly. I'm a journalist, but I got good math scores. Cynthia, how about you?
Yeah, thank you, Lee, and it's an honor, to be on this panel together with Claire and Dexter. As a professional, on the panel, I myself has been in the private client wealth planning industry for about 26 years. I actually started as a practitioner, so I'm actually legally trained, and I practiced for about more than 10 years, before I've been with, private banks. I cannot agree more, with what Claire started. I think is art and science. Obviously, as advisors and as institutions, we are here to help with the science, as in the legal structure, administration aspect of it. But I think a lot of the value also goes into the sort of like quote-unquote art of the process. And for us, it's more about tabling a collective experience that we gather working with families, in the region and around the world. Just share some good practices and maybe some lesson learned, and hopefully to facilitate, because at the end of the day, I think we have to appreciate that, no single family is the same, and all the issues and dynamics are not the same as well. So it just takes a lot of, involvement, from the family side, but also working closely with professionals, to be able to wonderful this journey.
And when Dexter, Dexter talked about...
Please go ahead, Claire.
Dexter, I wanted to react to Dexter. We're talking about continuity, and I think founders are always concerned about how shall the successors continue our legacy? Maybe it's time to also pause and say, maybe we do not need them to continue, because we do need to look at innovation, and they need to find their ways and their business models. And it might be reverse mentoring, that we elders need to listen to the successors in succession planning.
That's a really interesting point. Let's get into that right now. I mean, Dexter, I think that's one of the biggest challenges a successor faces, isn't it? From the outside, at least, it seems like one of the biggest points of friction between the first generation and the successor is the need to modernize versus tradition. What's your take on that, and how have you resolved that point of friction over time?
Okay, I think Claire actually quickly jumped into a very interesting topic or interesting area where about continuity. And I have a slightly different thinking. I always think that the successor or the deemed successor or the appointed successor has to be encouraged to want to take over whatever the legacy. They need to be encouraged, because they see they see the predecessor, they are a bit like they're concerned, or they see how hard they work, and seeing that what they can enjoy at this moment in time, they may not be encouraged at all, because they may just want things to be very easy. So growing up in a third generation family business, I was discouraged. It's because that all day and all night, all I see is that conflicts. Conflict is a nicer way of describing it. Let's put it this way, you know. I see. So
We feel for you.
yeah. So you know, where usually as a third generation, sometimes we're being we need to play safe as well. We need to kind of be the you know, the fire hydrant in a way, just to make sure that things continue to move forward. And yeah,
the pressure that you're under, that fire hydrant, as you mentioned, a lot of the time that's from birth, right? Which leads me to one of the things I want to ask all of you. How soon is too soon? If you intend to hand down your family business, when should you start preparing the next generation? I want to go to Claire first for this again, because I read some comments you made to Tatler in the past, where you've said basically from the day they're born. Do you still stand by that?
I think the family dialogues, the dinners, the meals, when we discuss work, and when we bring the children to our hotels, I mean, we are in the business that you can live and play and work all in one go. I think it's sort of like a slow immersion in orientation. And when we are bringing them along, we explain to them, we talk to them. And it is inevitable that they will be oriented to the business. So it is socialization early. But all my children started working like intern at the age of 14 or 15.
Right.
And we get them to actually work from the canteen, to stay in the dormitories, and then deal with guests, and then be scolded and spit on if they had sometimes. So in a way, they got, you know, used to the idea of work and hotel work. So it can't be something that we force them into, and we didn't intend to do that. We expose them to it early through conversations, through practicum, and then we assess how they respond to it. I wasn't sure that any of them will join us, but it became such that, you know, they all go different ways now, all three of them. All three of them had the same exposure to the hospitality upbringing, so-called, but three of them are in different domains this moment. So you can do just as much as parents. They have to decide their future.
Cynthia, what do you think? How soon is too soon? Is there a danger sometimes in founders getting too caught up in the romantic idea of passing on their business, and that can actually sometimes derail their planning and their strategic thinking?
Well, in terms of preparing a successor, many practical experiences and cases we've worked on shown that there would be at least a period of 10 years of intensive, you know, sort of like transition. So that is, you know, when the controlling generations is actively grooming, and these are usually adults who already are in the business for maybe, you know, 5 to 10 years, and then spend a 10-year transition period of really passing on sort of like, you know, the torch. But go back to the earlier point about continuality. What I would like to supplement is there are actually many ways of how a family, you know, continue. And I think with an unprecedented year, you know, with a pandemic and a lot of the problems that we have today, you know, in the world. In the last couple of months, you know, our conversations with families in the region has become, you know, a lot more philosophical, if you will, and a lot more liberal. And I think people are looking at economics of businesses. They are looking at cycles. Nobody knows, you know, economically or geopolitical risk is going to impact, you know, the various nature of industries and geographies and jurisdictions and sector as well. So the continuation of family, usually we look at it is on the values and the identity of each of the family members that belongs to the clan. And even though a lot of the attachments may be to the original business that was founded, you know, by the senior generations or the grandpa or the great-grandpa generation, people are starting to accept that, you know, there could be evolvements in terms of attachment to a business. There can be evolvements in terms of attachments to a family home, or there can also be, you know, the perception of looking at alternatives, including family members remain as passive shareholders, and then we might look into hiring, you know, professional CEO or a board of directors to run a company. So I think there are many interesting, you know, evolvements as we are seeing in Asia, and there would be some of these trends, you know, that is worth noticing.
Cynthia, paint me a thumbnail sketch then, very, very briefly. What does the ideal succession plan look like? Like, what's the most common, you know, the most common traits that every successful succession has as a commonality?
Well, unfortunately, I cannot quite generalize it, because my conversation usually with each client is what is the objective we want to arrive at. Now, clients comes in with a very simple objective. They just want to have, an orderly arrangement. They just want a will in place. They just want their kids to be provided for. So that's one objective. Businesses and conglomerates and family business owners come in, with different objectives. Continuity is one, sustainability is the other. Maintaining family identity can also be, some on the list of consideration. So I think it goes back to what we want to achieve at different stage, of life for the planner, and then we try to work around that.
Yeah.
I'd like to respond to that. I think it's good to have a few years when the successors, especially if they are family members, to be part of the organizational infrastructure. They need to go through the process. They need to understand who are the elders, who are the players, how they can navigate through. And then after 3 to 5 years, they can then take on the leadership and then prove themselves. But I don't think they should jettison into a high position, because there are organizational elders that they really need to convince of their own worth. And that's also in claiming their dignity and their autonomy.
Absolutely. Claire, you have 3 children, I believe.
Totally.
2 of them, Ren Young and Ren Hua, are already part of the family business. Your youngest, Ren Chen, is still in education, I believe, but also has still been involved from a young age.
Yeah, but
how did you all together decide the ultimate path for Ren Young and Ren Hua? And what is the ultimate aim? What is that journey we want them to go on?
It was evolving. It was really evolving. Ren Hua was 3.5 years older than my daughter, Ren Young. So we actually put him onto the banyan tree in China. It was a baptism of fire.
I bet.
Too deep an ocean he got into. Did get drowned, but was a really tough, fast learning process. And afterwards, he decided, it's better to go into a business where people don't talk back so much. He went into our agri-business, starch business, in Thailand. So he found his way, and is doing splendid.
Yeah.
And Ren Young, because of her strength in brand development and her interest at that time with me on global foundation and on cottage industry, found her niche in a business she started called Meta, which I then saw as also a competitive advantage to be included into banyan tree. Yeah. And then she came in, and lo and behold, she becomes more corporate than I could imagine. So children surprise you. What do you think they could be? They actually turn out other areas of expertise by living through themselves what it means for them. And that's discovery. And my youngest, becoming a lawyer. And he's coming to do all the corporate affairs of the company. So in a way where you plan succession, is never getting it right all the time. But you need to fit for purpose. And you do that by studying what your children are good at.
Experience within the group, it seems like you're saying, and experience outside of the group as well, so that they can get a sense of context as well.
Absolutely.
Next, you've said to Gen.T in an interview in the past that, when you were younger, you were exposed to different departments within the company, and that meant you were able to develop skills at a far rate, very similar to what Claire seems to be saying as well. But you said that these perks don't come easy, quote unquote. What do you mean by that?
I was listening. That there are a few things that when I was exposed to different departments in terms of different departments in the company, because you see, I was made in a high positions, in the top management positions immediately. By what Claire mentioned just now, that there are a few seniors that, of course, we need to prove. I need to prove myself. But I was lucky enough that I do not need to prove myself at that point in time. I think it's because that it has been in the family culture. As long as you're a family member, perhaps that you immediately sit as a management. And I personally felt that it is something that which is workable. It's just that the family culture and the family teaching has to play a role, that you need to learn as fast as possible. You need to take the opportunity with your position and with your influence. It seems that you are a family member, and then you need to ask the correct questions, like what I learned from law school, that to learn as fast as possible in a very short time, in result that you can actually seize opportunity. that with the ever evolving market sentiment. For example, no one would have expected that there will be a pandemic which is happening right now. I wasn't home at all for the past during the whole pandemic. Is because that I see the whole market as a reset for youngsters and for a third generation like myself leading the company to capitalize and to seize as much opportunity as possible, and at the same time to clean up whatever that currently I have, so that to prepare myself for coming challenges. Yeah.
Cynthia, I mentioned it at the beginning, the impact that a bad succession can have on the sustainability and stability of a business. Just how much does a solid succession plan impact the stability of a business?
Well, I think there are many research who look into public companies and the impact of a transition in leadership and therefore, succession on stock prices. The good news is, investors tend to believe, heavily in family businesses for the fact that, they remain the largest shareholder or controlling shareholder of a company, because usually family businesses can afford a much longer term view in the development of the business in the various cycles that they weather. But at the same time, they hopefully are more sustainable in terms of maintaining the value of the business. Now, however, I think there are also many examples around the world and also in Asia as well, in various different, companies that are listed, whereby if a succession wasn't handled, smoothly, or if there are unexpected events that happen along the way in a transition, there could be significant impact in a short-term, period of time in terms of the stock prices of the performance. I think at the end of the day, it goes back to the confidence in terms of, the captain of the ships of taking this forward. And I totally agree with that. So at times like this, it might pose to be challenging, but at the same time, I think it's also a very good opportunity to establish, leadership style, to establish, a different way of communication, and also to strengthen, internally the organization, because everybody, is going through, unprecedented challenges. Yeah.
As you say, the leader of a business has to be the captain of a ship. They have to be self-assured. They have to be confident. They have to have all these attributes that you need to successfully lead a business. Claire, I would love to get your take on that. I mean, ultimately, succession is about making yourself replaceable, which is antithetical maybe to the self-belief you need to run a huge organization. How have you dealt with that?
If you ask me how long I would like Gen.T to last, and I'll say not less than 500 years, forever. But you ask the successors, my children, how long do you think Gen.T will last? They say it'll be good if it's forever, but it depends. So it is with the times, and it's hard for me to even think, and I won't be here, to know what they will do with it. So I ask myself the questions, what are they succeeding into? Yeah. We have been here to found it and then to last it. But the younger people may like to build fast, and then maybe at a good opportune time, with the market situation as it is, sell, and then retire to live a different kind of life, because diversity lifestyles have become so plentiful now. So the values and what we see as important may be different. So I dare not even think about where this is going. Every generation lives its value system.
I want to ask a quick follow-up, but then I want to go to Dexter. Claire, knowing that, does it make it more difficult to take your hand off the steering wheel?
No. In fact, we are already started to do this a few years back. We gave off. The founders need to step back. We are still around to hold them and catch them while they are trying to run. We are still here. It is easier to let go while watching them and encouraging them, like Dexter say, but not giving them either the blank check. And they, as our children, brought up by our values, knowing about the legacy, committed to the core values, and the elders' hard work and all that was Dexter has shared, they too respect the elders' views. So this mutuality is a very important intergenerational communication ethos to help the company sustain and evolve to thrive.
Dexter, Claire raises an excellent point there, and I think it's something that applies to you as well. With a company, when it's had the longevity as yours has, as Kim Tech Chong has had, so much must have changed between the first and third generation leadership, the market, the challenges they faced, and so on. So what does remain the same? What does remain consistent over the years? Is it intangible qualities like values? Is that essentially the true north of any company that has longevity?
I believe that is the family teaching and the values that will continue. I think that's something that I've observed for the for the three generations. As I was a little kid, watching discussions and watching, all the conflicts and all the joy that they had managing the business, all the celebrations and everything. It's all about the family values. There's not like 100%. There will not be a time where everything is like happy and consistent. There will be times where everyone is put into a test in terms of how do they react and how do they interact with each other. Mm. And at the same time is that, can you imagine that if everyone has the same values in the family and everyone are made a leader, and if there are so many leaders in that particular organization, and perhaps and those organizations are not as big as Banyan Tree, and you have so many leaders that crowded in that that family business, and everyone are team and have this mindset that to be successful is to lead, and that's where trouble will start.
Absolutely.
Can I react to that?
Please.
To that?
Please go ahead, Claire.
I think leading in a family situation, while it is very competitive and there may be tension, but that is where family upbringing, parenting, and building the sibling ethos is so important. The time we spend on building corporate affairs must be parallel with the time we spend on building the successors or the siblings' affection and trust, accountability, transparency. Everything we do in corporate, we need to do it in the family,
right?
In the relationships to guarantee the success.
Claire, history is littered with examples of sibling rivalry destroying businesses, right? I mean, look no further than Samsung and what's happened in the last couple of years. The prime example of that. So what actual actionable steps have you taken that you can share with our audience to put family harmony first, but also at the same time to ensure that each of your children is positioned where they can contribute most to the business?
Are you asking me?
Yes, please.
Okay. I feel that parents need to know their children, where their strengths are. I think family succession in business is really about a long journey of early socialization, building the trust factor. I think that trust capital is paramount. And more important, as parents, we need to be accountable by being transparent in whatever way we deal with them. So we tell them what our intention is. We set up a family council 3-4 years ago, even before the children were formally in the company. The family council is to put onto the table in a trust manner where we discuss matters. Even it could be as trivial as where do we eat for dinner or where do we go for the next big holiday. Because all this depends on budget. So in that sense, all this trust capital is carried on to when you talk about in business. It is just so important. And I don't think families spend enough time to discuss business matters in a family setting, but it has to have an agenda. We take minutes, we discuss offline, online, as a family council members, apart from the directorship.
That sounds like a very healthy way to deal with family conflict. I think my family could.
And I don't think I think the children may have tension and arguments, but I think each having found their expertise, then find themselves complementing each other with their skill sets. That's why each one has to find their positioning on what is their fit for the purpose. And then when they see their strength, no one argues because they will go to that person because he's best in the law. The other one is better in finance. The other person is better in brand. And the put together is collective strength. That's what we hope to find among the siblings and nurture that direction, while the corporate decisions and for the future will be made consensually.
We are coming
because of the trust,
Sorry.
and because of trust and communication, they will be able to achieve it.
We are coming to the end of our allotted time. If each of you has an additional 10 minutes, I would love to continue this conversation for 5 minutes before going over to an audience Q&A. Do you have an additional 10 minutes?
Sure.
I don't want to stop our flow. And I really want to ask Cynthia a question that I find really, really fascinating, which is the rise of the family office. A family office essentially being a personal investment firm, that roams global markets looking for opportunities. In 2019, there were around 1,300 family offices in Asia. And globally, family offices have become a huge force in investing recently, with up to $4 trillion in assets, which is more than all the hedge funds combined, and the equivalent of about 6% of the value of the world's stock exchanges. This is a huge trend. So outside of the business CEO succession is the creation of family offices to continue legacy and wealth. Is this a trend that you think is expected to continue?
Absolutely, and thank you so much, Lee, for the question. And I actually realized that, and probably we'll come to that in a minute, in the list of questions that we get, one is about, young entrepreneurs looking to build businesses and then sell them fast. In fact, I think the trend of family offices emerging in Asia in particular is attributing to a number of factors. So first is there is obviously this young generation of entrepreneurs who are looking to build businesses at its peak and then be able to exit also at its peak. Secondly, we touch upon a little bit about certain industries, evolving through its various life cycles, and therefore we also have families, traditional families, who decided to, at some point of their business, exit the original business and turn themselves into a pure investment office. And I think the third has a lot to do with what we just talked about in terms of family governance processes. The truth is, I personally believe we need to have a family governance process for the family, because we shift from a single decision maker to multiple decision makers. And that is where, from usually one senior founder generation, taking the control, making the decisions, having the lead, and then beyond that, looking to transition wealth into multiple, generations and wealth owners, down in the generation ladder. So with the contribution of all these factors, family office is essentially a execution platform, if you will. It can start with just one person. It can be as established as 60 people. In Asia, I think, or in the region, we might have family offices that have been around for more than 60 years, and many of which, would have a lifespan of about 10 to 15 years. So they were there to facilitate a family shifting from running a business to just purely, looking into investment opportunities and dealing with financial matters, to broadly, a family office whereby they can also equally carry the function on the family governance process in terms of, coordinating, facilitating family meetings, having a central concierge, sort of like, team, if you will, to deal with, various sorts of family matters. So I think that was a bit of contribution of various factors that we see the emergence of such.
I want to ask a quick follow-up to that, then I'll ask a final question to Dexter and Claire, and then I'm going to open it up to audience questions as well. So if you do have questions, I see loads of them have been coming through in the chat. Please do leave your question there, and we'll try to find time to get to it. Cynthia, there's an old saying that the first generation makes it, the second generation spends it, and the third generation blows it. Basically, is this born in reality, and is a family office a way to kind of stymie that transition?
Well, the short-sleeve to short-sleeve problem, unfortunately is more real, than we would want it to be. And I think the solution is not about, family office or family governance or mission statement. I think the solution is to look into really simply as a family, how we can communicate. The one thing I personally feel very strongly, after working with a lot of families in the region for some time is when it comes to making a decision for a family, and no matter, how tough the decision is going to be, I do think it is very important for everyone around the table as stakeholders to be able to put forth the collective interest of the family first, before, their individual or their personal interest. And I think if we can achieve that, there is probably a much higher, success rate of us being able to deal with that problem. And I think Claire alluded a little bit to that as well. In order to do that, we cannot allow the most important decision, for example, selling grandpa's business, to be the first decision that the group of generations is going to make. So it probably starts with, where to go for dinner or where to go for a vacation. It takes practice and a lot of consensus and compromise for family members to be able to get to collective decision-making process in a smooth manner, whereby they can agree to disagree, disagree to agree, but at the same time putting family interests first ahead of individual interests.
Cynthia, you'll be surprised that the decision about where to go for dinner vacation, that whole process of negotiation actually trains children to speak up, to exercise their desire, and to see how we all come to a compromise. And that transfer to higher order deliberation, it is stepwise. It's from children all the way to adulthood. So if I would encourage anyone to start off in family coaching, I think we do need family consultants to come and intervene to help family members speak up in a mutually supportive way. And I think that is lacking.
Dexter and Claire.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, entirely. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Lee, yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I agree with that entirely, Claire. But at the same time, it is also through the negotiation process, and we observe the dynamics, and the chemistry is usually different, for siblings growing under the same roof with the same parents versus cousins, for example. And I think therefore it takes multiple practices, to get to the big decisions. Yeah.
Dexter and Claire, we invited you both on today as real exemplars of a successful succession. But I would love to know, if you could do it all over again, what would you do differently? Dexter.
I would, if I were to do it all over again. I'm new with questions. I would start from home. I will start from home. I'll still encourage them to be leader, and I'll still encourage them that to look for your own swimming pool. If you can find your swimming pool in the family business, by all means, go for it. And then if you can't find if you find that the swimming pool is a bit smaller in a family environment, go and look for a bigger swimming pool and build your own world outside the family. It's all about legacy. It's all about the family name, the collective reputation of the family. I see that it is more powerful than building bigger businesses or anything. So I felt that this is what I think. So I'll start from home. Yeah.
And Claire, what about yourself?
I'll go to China 20 years earlier to get to the markets. And I will then maybe study finance and besides social sciences.
Yeah.
The family coaching, I felt that I have done that in a way. And as a tiger mom, and that's in a way brought me to where I am now. But the other two, I wish I had done that much earlier.
Okay, so we have some questions from our audience as well. This one is for Claire and Dexter. How do you handle family members who are not performing as expected, particularly when they are in very senior positions, which could have implications on the family's reputation? That's a big question. Whoever wants to take that first.
Can I take it?
Yes.
Please.
Okay, you want a straightforward answer, or you want to go merry-go-round?
Straightforward.
Okay, the best thing about family business is that we can maneuver very agile and we can be very flexible. It is very dangerous to be keeping the family members who are not performing. And they have two influences. One is positional influence, and also, of course, their family influences in the family. And the moment that if they are not performing, I will say that put them on. I mean, in a more milder sense, you guys can take it whatever sense. I think put them on PIP, performance improvement program. So that is to that extent that I will want to go near there. But anything happen in PIP is entirely up to you. Yeah.
Okay. Claire?
I don't have the problem of cousins or family members for us, it is only 5 of us, the core family members. As to whether they are performing or non-performing, as a parent and as an educationist and as a mother, I see it as a process. It is as much, if they are not performing, it's as much my responsibility as it is their shortcoming. So I will give it a chance to reviewing to see how I could PIP improve it on my side, on the coaching side, on resourcing them to perform. Because I really feel that people are not bad or good, or they're not performing. I will ask, are they resourced adequately to perform? So I will review it and do that together. And if I've done that and they still do not perform, then I ask, maybe they are not for that purpose. They may be better in something else. So as long as you want to keep the family in management, you have to see the possibility of talent optimization every level. But if you feel after you've done all that, they still fail to perform, that means they're not fit for purpose. It's good that they do something else and you help them to exit and navigate in other areas that might in fact help in the family office eventually. Right. That's what Cynthia said, to deliberate with the others on creating more value.
I want to ask 2 more quick questions. This one is to Cynthia from M. Lee in the chat box. M. Lee says, I read from a recent survey that many young entrepreneurs prefer to build fast, sell, and retire their business. Therefore, is succession planning or transition planning really necessary anymore? Will it become less of a thing over time? Cynthia, what do you think?
Well, thanks, Lee. It may not be about, passing on the business, but I think it could be also about passing on the wealth. And I think these days, a lot of what is in the minds of our clients is, it's just uncertainty. And there's just more uncertainties in this world than ever. So I think, planning also offers, provides certainties in terms of wealth ownership, but also in terms of providing for, a safety net, for example, for family members and people that they care. And the only other area I would want to add to that is about, making good, giving back to the community. And there are, in fact, way more philanthropic efforts that we've seen this year, than ever, in various communities. And I think that's also something in the minds and in the subject of planning.
Finally, to Claire and Dexter from Jason Yao in the chat box. In passing on a business to multiple children, is it important to appoint one clear leader rather than leaving them with equal say?
Well, there's chronology. Who is older, who started first, becomes sort of the natural leading person. May not prove to be the leader of the business, but obviously the one leading first. So in my family, in my situation, Ren Hua being the eldest started off with Bai-Yan-Tree, but right now he's off into another domain. And second one, Ren Yong, is leading and still learning who to become that. So in a way, we can't say who is that first lead. Of course, the first lead is still the parents at this point, but we dare not say now. We can say we know better. The world has changed so much around us. They know a lot more and different things that we need to listen to them. So I think the whole reversal, mentoring, coaching, mutuality have to happen now. And there is no one leader. Everyone is leading, and collectively we come to a certain decision at the family office discussions. If we take that attitude, then we are all first among equals.
I think that's a perfect place to leave it. I could ask you another 20 questions that we've received in the chat box, but we're already way over time. This has been a really insightful, interesting conversation. Thank you so much, Cynthia Lee, Dexter Lau, and Claire Chang for everything. I'm about to hand over to Xiaowei. Before I do, Claire, is it true that you named Banyan-Tree after a village that you lived in Hong Kong in the 70s?
Yes.
Because I live in that village now.
Oh,
and I only learned that through doing my research for this. There should be a plaque to you and your husband.
Wonderful. Enjoy.
Yes. Thank you, Cynthia, Dexter, and Claire. It's been a real pleasure. Xiaowei, over to you.
Sorry, I was on mute. Thank you so much to our speakers again. So if I can invite you guys to switch off your videos and as well to go on mute so I can do the outro. Okay, so I think, like many of you, I think you guys enjoyed the conversation. It was such a dynamic and interesting conversation, and I hope you received a lot of insights from that. So I think that's a good place for us to conclude this webinar. For those of you who might not be familiar with what Cloud Talk is actually a monthly webinar series by Gen.T, and that happens twice a month actually, and it happens in both English as well as in Mandarin. So the next Cloud Talk session that will be held, it will be on July 30th, and that will be our Mandarin version, and it will be on wine as an alternative investment. So I hope to see you guys there. If you want more information, you can always visit our website at GenerationT.Asia. You can also follow us on Instagram at GenerationT_Asia. I hope to see you guys on July 30th. Thank you so much and good afternoon.